This is a sad morning here at Today and at NBC News.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today we're counting down our picks for the biggest controversies to sully the reputation of famous talk shows or their hosts.
Our next book is A Million Little Pieces.
Number 30. Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross's Cruel Joke. In 2008, BBC talk show host Ross joined Brand's radio show as his guest co-host. Andrew Sachs, best known for his work in the sitcom Fawlty Towers, was meant to be a phone-in guest.
Fawlty Towers, how are you? Nice day.
However, when the hosts couldn't reach him, Ross and Brand left several voicemails on air.
The BBC is fighting a desperate battle to contain the crisis.
It quickly went off the rails when they joked about Brand's intimate relationship with Sachs's granddaughter, Georgina Bailey.
You said that at the beginning you were too embarrassed to call your grandfather.
Yeah, of course.
The anger over pranking a beloved UK actor was massive, especially as Sachs did not consent to the messages being played on air. Ross was suspended, while Brand resigned from the BBC, and the corporation was fined £150,000. In 2010, Ross left the BBC and soon joined ITV to create The Jonathan Ross Show. Number 29. Sharon Osborne defends Piers Morgan. From the talk's debut in 2010, Osborne was one of its most famous and controversial hosts. While she survived several scandals, it all came to a head in 2021, in the wake of her friend Piers Morgan's vendetta against Meghan Markle and walking away from Good Morning Britain. Osborne stuck up for him on the talk.
Did I like everything he said? Did I agree with what he said? No, because it's his opinion, it's not my opinion.
She clashed with co-host Cheryl Underwood, drawing the ire of the audience with her behavior in defending racism.
I have friends in my life. I stick up for my friends.
With the resurfacing of clips of Osborne claiming Markle wasn't black and allegations from former hosts of racist comments and getting them fired, the talk initiated an investigation. In the end, Osborne was let go.
We need to process the events of that day and what happened since so we can get to the healing.
Number 28. Jimmy Kimmel apologizes for using blackface. Before he was one of the biggest talk show hosts around, Kimmel was a co-host on The Man Show, which featured sketches, often parodying celebrities. In 2020, now fronting Jimmy Kimmel Live, he released an apology for his work on The Man Show and in other projects.
Jimmy Kimmel is apologizing today for wearing blackface back in the 90s, a decision he now says was a mistake.
At the time, he had taken part in sketches where he parodied celebrities by wearing blackface. Kimmel portrayed such famous figures as NBA icon Karl Malone and talk show legend Oprah Winfrey. He also developed a comedy Christmas album in 1996, where he pretended to be Snoop Dogg as he uttered racial slurs. Kimmel followed up his apology with a couple of months away from his show with a vacation before returning.
There's nothing more important to me than your respect, and I apologize to those who were genuinely hurt or offended by the makeup I wore or the words I spoke, said Kimmel.
Number 27. James Corden's ban. In 2022, the host of The Late Late Show with James Corden found himself in a unique scandal.
James Corden opened his show last night with a lengthy apology to the staff at a famous New York restaurant.
Reports soon came out that Corden had been banned from New York restaurant Balthazar by owner Keith McNally. He claimed the Brit had been abusive to his staff on 2 occasions. The first had to do with Corden finding hair in his dish and demanding his drinks be comped. The second time, the host screamed at staff over his wife's omelet order.
His wife had ordered an all-egg yolk omelet. When it was served, it had some egg whites in it.
The controversy got so big that Corden apologized on his show.
I also hate, as I said to the owner that day, that I've ever upset anybody, ever. It was never my intention.
In response, McNally unbanned him. However, after Corden denied his behavior in an interview with The Times shortly after, he was seemingly banned once more by McNally. Number 26. Bill Maher uses a racial slur. In 2017, Real Time with Bill Maher had then Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse on as a guest to promote his book, The Vanishing American Adult. However, when Sasse offered Maher to work in the fields if he visited Nebraska, the host responded with a racial slur. After Sasse grimaced and groans rang out from the audience, Maher stated it was a joke before moving on.
It's a joke.
The outrage caused demands for HBO to fire Maher, who issued an apology.
Very quickly the next day, he apologized. HBO said they won't re-air that show without bleeping that word out. And
Sass also apologized for not speaking out at the time. In a follow-up episode, Ice Cube, Simone Sanders, and Michael Eric Dyson confronted Maher on what he said and why it was damaging to the black community.
It's a word that has been used against us. It's like a knife, man.
Number 25, series of Wendy Williams controversies. Oh boy. Just one of these scandals is enough to cancel a talk show, let alone several in the space of 18 months. In January 2020, Williams drew ire on The Wendy Williams Show when she seemingly mocked rumors of Joaquin Phoenix having a cleft palate treated.
He's got this. Yeah? He's got this. No, I find it to be very attractive.
A month later, she ranted against gay men who opt to wear women's clothing.
I get offended by the idea that we go through something you will never go through. And stop wearing our skirts and our heels.
Days later, Williams mocked Amy Harwick, who was murdered and pushed from a balcony by using ex-fiancé Drew Carey's Price is Right catchphrase, "Come on down." In July 2021, Williams belittled TikTok rapper Swavey by asking if her audience knew who Swavey was, then announcing that he had passed away.
He's 19, and he was murdered Monday morning.
In 2022, The Wendy Williams Show was canceled, citing health issues by the host. Number 24, the affair of Amy Robach and TJ Holmes. When running a TV show, the chemistry between the hosts is a vital component.
You hit it, it wakes you up.
Alarm clock.
There you go.
However, Robach and Holmes took that too far. In 2022, the co-hosts of GMA3, What You Need to Know, were photographed getting cozy with each other off camera, igniting rumors of an affair between them. They were married to other people. Shortly after, ABC took them off air to investigate this, as well as accusations that Holmes had other affairs with additional staff.
Reports say that marathon negotiating sessions took place this week between the anchors, their lawyers, and ABC.
This led to Robach and Holmes being fired by the channel, and they went public with their relationship.
And so, to be clear, we were outed as being in a relationship, but everyone else thought we were being outed as adulterers.
Reportedly, the exes of Robach and Holmes, Andrew Shue and Marley Fiebig, started seeing each other in the aftermath. Number 23, the cancellation of Donahue. In 1996, after 29 years, the Phil Donahue Show ended as the legendary host retired to be with his family.
Well, thank you. I am flattered. You may be seated.
But in 2002, he returned with his self-titled program Donahue on MSNBC.
But I have to tell you, when you're called unpatriotic, it does stop you.
Yet in early 2003, the show was canceled, with the network citing low ratings. Shortly after, the real reason came out. An internal MSNBC memo was leaked that claimed Donahue should be fired due to his anti-war beliefs and his views against the U.S. invasion of Iraq.
A consulting firm, which I believe was a Republican conservative consulting firm, reported that Donahue's anti-war stance is just not going to be very good for us against the flag waving on the other station.
Years later, MSNBC higher-ups changed tack and tried to blame the cancellation on high production costs instead. Donahue spent the rest of his days as a guest on various shows before he passed away in 2024. Number 22, Megyn Kelly's blackface comments. In 2018, in the wake of reality star Luann de Lesseps using blackface to dress up as Diana Ross for Halloween, the Megyn Kelly Show decided to tackle the scandal, only for the host to cause her own.
I mean, truly, political correctness has gone amok.
Kelly defended de Lesseps, claiming that when she was a child, it was okay to don blackface to play a character, so it should be fine today. Understandably, the audience was livid. On top of apologizing to staff, Kelly also said sorry on her show.
And I want to begin with 2 words. I'm sorry.
However, within days, NBC canceled Megyn Kelly Today, barely a year after its debut. Several months later, in early 2019, Kelly's contract was terminated. The host received the remainder of her multi-million-dollar contract.
After months of negotiations with the TV host, NBC released this statement Friday.
The parties have resolved their differences, and Megyn Kelly is no longer an employee of NBC.
Number 21, The Jeremy Kyle Show cancellation. Presenting his self-titled show since 2005, Kyle was a leading figure in UK daytime TV.
Maureen, you're 58 and you're scum. What you've done is shocking.
With a similar format to The Jerry Springer Show and Maury, this regularly drew accusations that Kyle was, quote, human bear baiting. In 2019, his talk show empire came crashing down. After guest Steve Diamond failed the show's signature lie detector test, which has disputed accuracy, he sadly took his own life.
Today, ITV issued a statement saying, "Everyone at ITV and the Jeremy Kyle Show is shocked and saddened at the news of the death of a participant in the show."
Within days, the Jeremy Kyle Show was cancelled by ITV and repeats were scrubbed everywhere. Kyle's confrontational and misleading style was heavily criticized following reports of other guests passing away. After the coroner's report stated Kyle was possibly responsible, an inquest in 2024 cleared the host.
Listen, I've been cancelled.
Yeah.
In this world, it seems now that unless you follow a certain path, you're labelled.
Yes.
Number 20, Whoopi Goldberg defends Bill Cosby. As one of the co-hosts of the long-running talk show The View, Whoopi Goldberg's controversial statements have landed her in hot water on more than one occasion. In 2015, after the assault allegations against Bill Cosby came to light, Goldberg's first instinct was seemingly to come to his defense.
When somebody ruins your reputation, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Despite the fact that Cosby had admitted to drugging women in the past, the EGOT-winning multi-hyphenate still backed him on the talk show panel, stating that he was innocent until proven guilty.
I know it's a shock, but you actually were innocent until proven guilty.
Needless to say, her comments were not received well by the public. In light of the apparent evidence against Cosby, Goldberg eventually flipped her stance, acknowledging that it all pointed towards guilt.
Gotta say, all of the information that's out there kind of points to guilt.
Number 19, Morton Downey Jr.'s $40 million lawsuit. Before Jerry Springer popularized the trash TV format, there was the Morton Downey Jr. show. But unlike Springer, who typically tried to quell fights on his set, Downey was the instigator. In one of his most famous episodes, the host brought on an adult entertainer named Kelly Everts, who claimed to be a performer for God.
Kelly, let me tell you something, pal. If there's ever a milk strike, I'll know where to go.
Throughout the segment, Downey called her several demeaning names and at different points pushed her with his pelvis. These were all met with loud cheers from his audience. Everts later sued Downey for $40 million, alleging that he had humiliated and physically assaulted her. It's not quite clear how the lawsuit ended, but Downey's show was canceled just 2 years after its premiere.
Next, we'll find out. Next time, we'll find out that she's carrying Jesus.
Number 18, Ellen DeGeneres' toxic workplace allegations. Like many things these days, it all started with a viral Twitter thread. In March 2020, comedian Kevin T. Porter's thread opened the floor to claims that talk show host Ellen DeGeneres was a pretty mean person. A few months later, BuzzFeed News published reports from former employees who detailed years of harassment, intimidation, and racist microaggressions by senior producers of the show.
Ellen is now facing a major PR problem following a BuzzFeed article that portrays the Queen of Nice as the Queen of Mean.
According to them, this toxic environment was fostered by DeGeneres. Turns out the Be Kind lady may not have been keeping to her own words. An investigation by the production company led to the dismissal of 3 executive producers.
3 of the show's senior producers fired. After accusations, the show created a toxic work culture.
After 19 seasons on the air, the Ellen DeGeneres Show came to an end in 2022.
The truth is, I am that person that you see on TV. I am also a lot of other things.
The next year, late-night talk show host Jimmy Fallon would also be hit with similar accusations that The Tonight Show was a toxic workplace environment. Number 17, Rosie Perez and Kelly Osborne on The View. In 2015, Kelly Osborne appeared as a guest co-host on The View. While trying to counter then-presidential candidate Donald Trump's controversial remarks about Mexican immigrants, Osborne essentially put her foot in her mouth.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilets, Donald Trump?
Her fellow co-host Rosie Perez, who is of Puerto Rican descent, chimed in quickly and set her straight.
No, I didn't mean it like that. Come on.
Perez, who had already announced her departure from The View at the end of that season, was reportedly forced by ABC executives to apologize to Osborne during the live broadcast and on Twitter. Although these claims have been refuted by some insiders, it's believed that Perez canceled her final live appearances on the show as a result of the incident.
My apologies, Kelly Osborne. I took your point wrong. Trump, Latinos, my bad. Your heart is so pure and righteous. I adore you.
Number 16. Star Jones's sudden departure. The original lineup of The View consisted of creator Barbara Walters, Meredith Vieira, Debbie Matenopoulos, Joy Behar, and Star Jones. Jones remained on the show until 2006, when, seemingly out of nowhere, she announced that she would not be returning for the next season.
The show's moving in another direction for its 10th season, and I will not be returning as co-host next year.
This came as a shock to Walters, not because of what she said, but rather when it was said. Jones's departure was slated to be announced on June 29, 2006, but the co-host decided to take matters into her own hands by breaking the news 2 days early.
This is a surprise. This would come about this way. We did not expect it.
This kicked off a tense feud between the two women. However, they appeared to have patched things up by Jones's next appearance on the show in 2012.
It was a bad emotional time. Nasty things were being said.
Number 15. Sharon Osbourne's view of The View. Nothing brings out the best and sometimes worst in us like competition. The Talk premiered in 2010 with a very similar format as that of The View, kicking off a ratings battle between both shows. When the ladies of The Talk appeared on the Arsenio Hall show in 2013, he wanted to know how the two programs differed from each other. Just as Julie Chen attempted a diplomatic answer, Sharon Osbourne interrupted her with a rather blunt opinion.
I love Barbara Walters. The rest can go.
The incident certainly didn't do Osborne or The Talk any favors. A few days later, she took a moment on the show to apologize for her remarks, chalking them up to her being a, quote, loose cannon. Number 14. Ann Curry's controversial dismissal. Ann Curry had served as a news anchor on The Today Show for years before she was finally promoted to co-host in 2011. Curry's short time in the chair was reportedly troubled.
I'm Matt Lauer. And I'm Ann Curry, in for, I guess, nobody this morning.
According to some industry insiders, she was only given the job because the show's producers were unsure if longtime host Matt Lauer would renew his contract.
I've worked here for 14 years. If you've been able to put up with me for that long and you're clapping, that's a good sign.
Once it became clear that Lauer was staying, they apparently decided that Curry had to go. Just about a year after she got the job, Curry announced in a very emotional appearance that she would be leaving. Many viewers who were incensed at the controversial departure turned their backs on the show, resulting in their competitor, Good Morning America, taking the #1 spot.
And so to all of you who watch, thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me touch yours, and thank you for your tweets and your emails.
Number 13, the infamous Heraldo Brawl. There's a reason why tabloid talk shows quickly became known as trash TV, and it's because of moments like this. In November 1988, Geraldo Rivera invited a panel to discuss a provocative topic.
I really recommend that you don't push me too hard, though.
Oh, come on, sir.
Among the lineup were some white supremacists, members of the Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice, as well as the African-American activist Roy Innis. Things began to escalate when one of the white supremacists referred to Innis with a derogatory term.
You've got to be kidding. You've got to be kidding.
Innis walked over and grabbed him by the neck, setting off a full-fledged brawl that left Rivera with a fractured nose. As expected, the incident gave the show a ratings bump, proving that when it comes to trash TV, there is no such thing as bad publicity.
Only slightly the worse for the wear. We're back. The skinheads have been, the racist skinheads have been cleared out of the building.
Number 12, Bryant Gumbles' scathing memo. About 7 years into his role as the Today Show anchor, Bryant Gumble was asked to write an assessment of the program by executive producer Marty Ryan. Gumble did not hold back. His critiques were notably harsh and were directed at several of his colleagues, most notably the jovial weatherman Willard Scott. In the memo, Gumble stated that Scott was, quote, holding the show hostage to his assortment of whims, wishes, birthdays, and bad taste. He also had equally blunt words for some other staffers on the show. Unsurprisingly, Gumble's memo eventually found its way into the hands of the press. The resulting fallout between him and Scott partly contributed to Today dropping to number 2 in the ratings.
I did what I was asked to do. I did it in what I thought was a professional fashion.
Number 11, Pat O'Brien's lewd voicemails. When it came to sportscasting, Pat O'Brien was one of the best in the business. Through the 80s and 90s, O'Brien made a name for himself in sports news, and then became a host for the entertainment programs Access Hollywood and The Insider. He found himself embroiled in controversy in 2005 when a series of explicit voicemails he sent to an unidentified woman leaked on the internet. O'Brien had just checked into rehab for alcohol use disorder when the messages, which he sent in a drunken state, became public.
And I don't remember it. I apparently made it on a Sunday, and I woke up with every boss I have at the edge of my bed in LA.
Following the incident, O'Brien was miraculously able to retain his job on The Insider. He was, however, fired 3 years later after sending out an ill-conceived email blasting his co-worker Lara Spencer.
And I said, you know, that's the guy I do not want to be.
Number 10, Dr. Phil drug scandal. In 2017, this long-running television program came under fire after former Survivor contestant Todd Herzog accused the producers of exploiting his substance use disorder to generate views. During his infamous appearance on the show, Herzog was so intoxicated he could not stand up on his own, indicating to viewers the seriousness of his condition. However, according to Herzog, he was coerced by staff into drinking 2 bottles of vodka and given Xanax to, quote, calm his nerves before filming.
You're not okay.
No.
The Dr. Phil Show has vehemently denied these claims. However, an expose published in 2017 by The Stat and the Boston Globe exhibited multiple victims making similar claims against the production.
It wasn't until about 30 days into treatment that I realized exactly how bad I was.
Number 9, Rosie O'Donnell versus Elizabeth Hasselbeck. The View can sometimes feel like a daytime soap opera. Of all the scandals this talk show has endured over the years, the feud between co-hosts Rosie O'Donnell and Elizabeth Hasselbeck was perhaps the most notorious. The tension between the two reached its boiling point in 2007 when Hasselbeck referred to Iraq as, quote, America's enemy, prompting O'Donnell to argue that the Bush administration was truly at fault.
You just said our enemies in Iraq. Did Iraq attack us?
The liberal O'Donnell additionally criticized the media for their unflattering portrayal of her, claiming that they favored the conservative Hasselbeck.
Because here's how it gets spun in the media. Rosie, big, fat, lesbian, loud Rosie, attacks innocent, pure Christian Elizabeth. And I'm not doing it.
Following their heated argument, O'Donnell left the show, while Hasselbeck exited 5 years later. Number 8, Alec Baldwin's offensive remarks. Although Alec Baldwin is one of the most outspoken liberals in showbiz, his behavior hasn't always lived up to his professed ideals. In 2013, the Oscar-nominated actor landed in hot water when he allegedly directed a gay slur at a paparazzo. In due course, Baldwin was suspended from his late-night talk show for 2 weeks. While Baldwin initially claimed he was misquoted, he ultimately described his outburst in an apology as, quote, offensive and unacceptable. However, the damage was done, as Up Late with Alec Baldwin was canceled after only 5 episodes. It probably didn't help that Baldwin also made homophobic remarks towards reporter George Stark on Twitter. Number 7, Mory Povich's harassment lawsuit. Mory Povich is no stranger to controversy, as many critics have accused his tabloid talk show of exploiting serious issues. Speaking of exploitation, a $100 million sex harassment lawsuit was filed against Povich and other members of his staff in 2006. The allegation stemmed from Bianca Nardi, a former producer of The Maury Povich Show, who claimed she had been forced to watch adult material and make advances at married men in bars while being filmed. She additionally accused executive producer Paul Fallhaber of making her wear revealing outfits, and implied that Povich was having an affair with producer Donna Ingber. Despite this scandal, Povich remained on television for years and is still married to Connie Chung. Number 6, Billy Bush fired from Today. Just when it seemed like the 2016 U.S. presidential election couldn't get any crazier, a 2005 hot mic recording surfaced in which Republican candidate Donald Trump shared an offensive and potentially incriminating conversation with Access Hollywood host Billy Bush. On a bus ride, Trump not only admitted that he tried and failed to seduce Nancy O'Dell, but also made some vulgar statements while discussing actress Ariane Zucker. The scandal took a drastic toll on Bush's public image, resulting in his termination from The Today Show. Meanwhile, Trump continued his campaign and was elected president almost a month later.
You don't get to say that, because I was there in the last 14 months of my life. I've been dealing with it. You dealt with it for 14 minutes and went on to be the president.
Number 5, blackmail attempt against David Letterman. After a long, hard day, audiences would typically tune in to Late Show with David Letterman for a lighthearted laugh. The talk show took an uncomfortable turn in 2009, though, when Letterman confessed to having several sexual relationships with his female staffers. An extortionist had targeted Letterman, threatening to write a screenplay about the television host's affairs unless he coughed up $2 million.
And he seems to, in this packet, there seems to be quite a lot of terrible stuff he knows about.
Cooperating with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Letterman wrote a fake check, and his blackmailer was arrested shortly after. While Letterman was met with some negative press following this shocking announcement, he eventually moved on from the scandal and hosted Late Show for 6 more years before retiring in 2015. Number 4, Oprah Winfrey versus James Frey.
It's a radical departure, it's not a classic, and it is also not fiction.
James Frey hit it big time when his memoir, A Million Little Pieces, was selected for Oprah's book club in 2005. Chronicling Frey's history with substance use disorder, the book became a New York Times bestseller and a cultural sensation.
If I was going to write a book that was true and I was going to write a book that was honest, then I was going to have to write about myself in very, very negative ways.
Many readers felt cheated, however, when it was revealed that Frey had fabricated information in his supposed true account. This didn't reflect well on Oprah, who invited Frey onto her show to talk about the controversy. Oprah didn't let Frey off with a slap on the wrist, eventually getting him to confess that he had made up parts of the story. She also brought on publisher Nan Talese to set the record straight. Number 3, Conan O'Brien versus Jay Leno. The original war for late night can be traced back to 1992, when Jay Leno became Johnny Carson's successor over David Letterman. This influenced Letterman to move from NBC to CBS, while Conan O'Brien was hired to fill the NBC late night time slot. History essentially repeated itself almost 2 decades later, when Leno exited The Tonight Show so O'Brien could assume his hosting duties. Unfortunately, O'Brien's ratings struggled, and the decision to give Leno a primetime talk show turned out to be a huge miscalculation. Since pushing back the schedule wasn't an option, O'Brien was given a $45 million payout, while Leno returned to The Tonight Show in 2010. Number 2, Matt Lauer's misconduct allegations. In rapid succession, from Bill O'Reilly to Charlie Rose, media personalities were publicly accused of sexual harassment in 2017.
Have you done some soul searching? Have you done some self-reflection? And have you looked at the way you treated women that you think now or think about differently now than you did at the time?
However, the sexual misconduct allegations directed at Matt Lauer shocked audiences perhaps the most. A staple of The Today Show for almost 20 years, Lauer was abruptly fired after a female NBC employee accused him of sexually harassing her 3 years earlier.
You know, for the moment, all we can say is that we are heartbroken.
It became clear that this was unlikely to be an isolated incident, as more women came forward. In one instance, Lauer was accused of summoning a former employee to his office and sexually assaulting her behind a locked door. The fact that Lauer was such a beloved host only made this more disturbing. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Jenny Jones guest loses his life.
Okay, you think about you have fantasies about him?
I've had a couple, yeah.
The Jenny Jones Show aired for over a decade, but it's actually best remembered for an episode that never even aired. Entitled Same-Sex Secret Crushes, the episode centered on a guest named Scott Amador, who, on the show, revealed his crush to an acquaintance named Jonathan Schmitz. 3 days after the episode was taped, Schmitz reportedly found a suggestive note from Amador. Schmitz subsequently purchased a shotgun, shot Amador 2 times in the chest, and alerted the authorities of the crime he had just committed. Having a history of mental health issues, Schmitz was convicted of second-degree murder. Meanwhile, the Jenny Jones Show faced a wrongful death lawsuit and was forced to pay Amador's family $25 million. Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.